Hello, my name is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and we are going to go over market updates for the S&P 500, treasuries, oil markets, natural gas markets. In addition, we're going to go over also the missile inventory. This was an analysis done by CSIS to get a better perspective on what is going on in the war with Iran. Please help support the work that I do by going to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee on my homepage of this website. You can just click the link and donate. It's through the donations and the ones that are paid members to my Patreon channel, Substack channel, and buy me a coffee channel that help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. You can also watch under broadcast audio archives of my podcasts. You can watch live streams that I do during the week and also read generated news that I just published yesterday. In addition, I have great products on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can get ebooks about finance, genomics, artificial intelligence, endocrinology. And you can also sign up for classes. I have PDFs and videos that you can watch that will actually teach you how the body works, especially in the systems of pulmonology and immunology. In addition, I have great supplements. I have structural nanosilver products like toothpaste. I have liquids like the Max 35 or Cleanse that will help to boost up your innate immune system. I have structural nanosilver gels that are great for skincare and to help neutralize during the cold season. You can get it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser form, like Renew. I also have in stock structural nanosilver soap. It's the peppermint version. And for drops and lozenges, I have honey and lemon, cherry flavor, manuka honey, and orange splash. For probiotics, I have a veggie cap version and a powdered version. This one on the screen here, probiotic, is the veggie cap version. You take it every day, and this will help to improve your gut biome, help with your digestion, help with your immune system. Good gut health starts by taking a high quality probiotic. And when you do this regularly, you're going to improve your skin, your brain function, your metabolism, even your immune system. And the multivitamin that I have on my store is easy to digest, and it will help to build that base that you need to slow down the aging process. It has vitamin A, C, D3, E, B1, B2, B3, B6, folate, B12, and biotin. So it's a great supplement and it's very easy to digest. In addition, I have C60. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or MCT coconut oil. C60 needs to be suspended in oil for proper absorption. Take a teaspoon a day every day, and this will soak up the free radicals, help with your immune system, help with your endocrine system, even your cardiovascular system. It will also help with the health of your neurons. When you take this regularly, you're going to slow down the aging process, boost up your ATP, and improve your mitochondrial health. D3, very important for bone density, but also it's a cofactor for gene expression. And it helps to get cells to go into apoptosis if they're infected. So taking D3 every day is very important. Vitamin C, magnesium. It's very important for immune system, brain function, and also skin health. Magnesium also improves the efficacy of vitamin D3. Omega-3 helps with your cardiovascular health. Ashwagandha root helps to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. Good Night formula helps you to get into the 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. And by getting into those cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep, you're detoxifying your central nervous system, consolidating memory, and you're well rested. This version of the probiotic is the powdered version. And again, taking a good probiotic is super important for a foundation for good health. Resveratrol. Resveratrol will help with youthful gene expression, get rid of cells that are in senescence, soak up free radicals, and boost up the health of your mitochondria. This stacks really well with C60. Vitamin B complex. The first 4 B vitamins helps with the electron transport chain within your mitochondria to boost up your ATP. Vitamin B complex revs up your cellular metabolism, and vitamin B complex helps to protect your neurons through B12. Turmeric brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. This will help to boost up that immune system, slow down the aging process, help with your cardiovascular system. And by bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals at the brain level, you're reducing the chances of amyloidosis. Magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc is super important for the immune system and also brain function. Lignans stacks really well with the turmeric and the ashwagandha. It soaks up the free radicals, brings down inflammation, helps with the immune system and endocrine system. Collagen will help with your musculature, your skin, your nails, your hair, your bone density, even your joint health. Very important. It stacks really well with collagen that I'll be talking about shortly. Digestive enzyme complex will break up the proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids for proper absorption and reduce the load on your pancreas. Super important for digestion. Clarity factor gets rid of that brain fog and allows you to concentrate. Taking it every day will allow you to build the positive neuroplasticity so your neural network is improved. You'll think better and you'll have better memory over time. Olive leaf extract brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals and helps to control the lipid profile. And when you do that, you're boosting up your immune system and you are helping your cardiovascular system. Zeolite. This is going to soak up your heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allows you to urinate them out within about 6 to 8 hours. Zeolite's really important to detoxify your body. You can take 3 small drops each day, drink it with filtered water to detoxify your body. Myotrol. Myotrol will help to build muscle. It has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. This is really important to take every day and do a little bit of resistance training throughout the week to allow you to build muscle. For ones that are 40 years of age or older, this supplement is super important. Now, if you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll benefit with Myotrol to build strength. And Myotrol stacks really well with the Gladiator barley that I'll be talking shortly. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients to help you to slow down the aging process. It is very comprehensive. It's a great stack. And this will help to build the cardiovascular health, build musculature, help with cellular regeneration, helps with brain function, slows down the aging process, boosts up your metabolism, soaks up free radicals, improves your vitality. Your energy levels will improve. This is a great supplement that you should be taking every day. It stacks really well with the Gladiator barley or heirloom barley. Gladiator barley will soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase, detoxify your body, and help you to build muscle. So if you are looking to build some muscle mass or improve your musculature, Gladiator barley is perfect for you, and it has the added benefits of bringing down inflammation. So you're going to notice that you're recovering from your workout much quicker. Now, heirloom barley is very similar to gladiator barley, but it's not focused on the strength gains. It's helping with the detoxification of the body, bringing down inflammation, and soaking up free radicals. Either one of them will help with controlling A1C levels, and it really helps when you stack it with the Boomer Boost to help to control the A1C levels. Now, you don't have, if it's really important as part of an anti-aging protocol to do resistance training. You don't have to be a bodybuilder, but taking supplements like Gladiator Barley and Myotrol and the Boomer Boost will help you gain musculature, which is important because when you get older, you start to atrophy. Now, collagen can be stacked with the collagen. This collagen you take every day to help to improve your joints if they're either arthritic or if you've had a sports injury. And how it works is that it helps to use the collagen 2 to remodel the actual cartilage, and ACAN to help the cushioning. It also helps to use the glucosamine to remodel the cartilage and chondroitin to help with the cushioning. In addition, it blocks the enzymes that erode the joint. It blocks MMP3 and MMP13. It also helps to block the pain gatekeeper via NAV 1.7. And it also reduces inflammation by blocking EP4. So it's a great supplement to take. It stacks really well with the collagen to help to remodel the joint. So what's important here is that you can take the collagen to remodel the joint that's arthritic or has a sports injury. You can take the collagen to have the peptides as the building material to help build up the joint. In addition, the heirloom barley and the gladiator barley, because it brings down inflammation, it'll help to reduce that erosion of the joint and help you to build it up. Now, in terms of pain, I have a new product on my store, Super Strong Relief. This works within about 90 seconds. It's a topical. If you have a bruise, a sprain, sore muscles, or even a headache or arthritic pain, apply it in the area and the pain will be lessened or eliminated. It's for temporary relief, but it's very fast. It's very effective. Now, so if you're trying to remodel, let's say, your joints and you have arthritic pain, I suggest getting the collagen, the super strong relief to cut the pain, and the collagen to help to have the ingredients, the building blocks to help the collagen to build up that joint. But over time, you can remodel your joints and improve your arthritis. And I also have anti-aging boxes. I've curated them at different price points to allow you to start on your health journey. There are anti-aging advanced boxes and deluxe boxes and super deluxe boxes, also skincare boxes, longevity boxes, and they're cheaper than if you bought them separately, separate products. So with that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the great supplements that I offer, and help support the work that I do. All right, with that, I want to share the screen that will go over the actual updates of the market. All right. Now the chart that's on the screen here is the ETF SPY, which is an ETF that trades the actual S&P 500. It's non-leveraged, and it's a great way to understand where the financial markets in the United States are going. And as you can see, we're at a near all-time high at the close of Friday is just below the all-time high of 724. All right. So what we have is uh, a resistance level. Remember what I was saying that the when I was saying last week, we had a resistance level at 720. Well, we broke that. So now the next resistance level is going to be 740. Now I have a target for SPY for year end at 740 to 780. But as we get closer to July, I may move that target up to 800. Now, so the next resistance level is 740. The support level right now is at 720. And you have a support level, very important because it's 00, support level at 700. And you have another major support level because it's the 23% retracement at 667. Okay. So if we do have a sell-off in the market, you can start buying, especially if it hits 700 and gets near the 670 mark. That would be good buying points. But most likely, this is going to start to tick up further and bounce off of the 740. So in terms of equities, doing really well. And this is in spite of what's going on in Iran. We still have extended ceasefire, but negotiations are failing between the United States and Iran. Oil is a different story. Now, last week I was saying that perhaps we are building a head and shoulder pattern. That this is the shoulder, this is the neck, and this is the head, the neck. And then I thought we were building up the next shoulder, but it's broken. With this big movement up and past the 104 mark, I don't think that this is shoulder pattern anymore. I think it's broken. So I'm going to stop talking about shoulder patterns. If it hovered a little bit at around the 100 mark, maybe below the 104 mark, I would have thought that maybe a shoulder pattern was developing, but I think this is nullified. All right, so what does that mean for oil? That means that, okay, we've had a few trading days that was above 104, and then it closed at 102. 104 is a resistance level, but it may become a support level, especially if things get worse in the Middle East and drug out. Now, if you look at this support level here, we have a support level at 94.84. Okay. So 94, so close to 95. That's the 38% retracement from the low, which was 54, to the high, which was 119 for the energy futures for oil, for WTI. And 23% retracement is the 104 mark. So 104 is a resistance level, but it could break pretty easily next week. I'm recording this on 5/3/2026. Now, if this pattern kind of continues, all right, and this 104 is maintained as a resistance level, then we're probably going to have a trading range here between 94.84 to 104. Okay, it's going to bounce around, bounce around, bounce around. But if we're starting to hear problems in terms of further supply disruption from the Middle East, then we're going to start seeing this creep back up above the 104 mark. And then you're probably going to have anywhere from 104 to 110, maybe even 112 trading range for a little while. But I think there's a higher probability that it tries to stay in the trading range of 94.84 to 104. But it can break and then pop back down to 104. You can notice that it didn't stay above 104 for very long back during the head of this head and shoulder pattern that I thought was developing. And we're only talking 1, 2, 3, 4 days or so. So I think that there's going to be a trading range between 94.84 to 104 for a little while, probably closer to the high 90s and the low 100s. So maybe 80, maybe 90, maybe 97 to 102, something like that. So it's not coming down anytime soon, is my main point. Now, this chart goes over natural gas. And this line here is shorting natural gas through the use of cold as the ETF. It's a 3 times leveraged ETF. And the candles are the actual future of natural gas. So if we zoom in here, okay, and by the way, the price for the ETF is on the left, the price for the actual futures for natural gas is on the right. So we closed at, for natural gas, at 2.789. And we have here a resistance level at 2.5, approximately 2.495 actually. And we're going to have a resistance level at around 2.8, 2.9, just below the 3 mark. Now, the last 4 or 5 days have been creeping up for trading. And you can see that with these last 3 days, the ETF cold has been going down. So for ETF cold, it closed at 25.59. All right. So we're looking at approximately around 28 as a resistance level for cold and a support level at approximately 25, maybe 24, 25, 24.50. So resistance level for cold is approximately 28, and support level for cold is going to be at approximately around 25. No, not 25. 22, 20, 24.50. 24.50. Right? 24.50 support level and resistance level 28. So for this to go, because it's shorting, this is a shorting ETF. If this continues to go up, if this future price continues to go up, this will continue to go down. If it starts to bounce off of that 3 mark or 2.8, 2.9, and starts to go back down towards the 2.5, then this ETF will start to creep back up towards the 4 point, start to creep back up to 28. Okay. So that's what's going on here. You can kind of see that there's a spread, you kind of play this, you kind of play the spread here. As the natural gas starts to go down, the spread increases, right? And then once the natural gas starts to go up, the spread starts to go down. And so when it looks like natural gas is peaking, that's the best time to buy. That's the key here, right? So natural gas, because it's going into now, it also has a lot of seasonality for natural gas. So with natural gas going into the summer season, there's a higher probability for it to be closer to 2.5, maybe 2.4 than 3. So this is part of the reason why there's probably more movement in terms of the spread to continue up. But the last 3 trading days, natural gas has been creeping up. Now, part of that reason is storage of natural gas was less than expected, but not that far from annual trends at the same time of the year. So I still think that natural gas is going to trade down a little bit. TYD is an ETF that trades the belly of the bond or the treasury market, which is the 7 to 10 year. It's a 3 times leverage ETF. So if you see the candles going up, that means bond prices are going up and bond yields are going down. So as of this recording, again, I'm recording this on 5/3/2026. The 10-year yield is trading at 4.378. Okay. There's no chance, doesn't seem like there is a chance for the Federal Reserve to lower rates anytime soon. And the ECB is staying steady in terms of its rates because they're all worried of the possible inflation of oil, elevated oil, and how PCE may increase. So they're concerned about energy shock to other costs within the economy. It is a mistake if the Federal Reserve raised rates in a oil shock environment, either because of supply shock or let me just stick to the supply shock. If there's a supply shock and to the negative, a negative supply shock, it is bad monetary policy to actually raise rates. It actually exacerbate the problem. So they'll either stay steady, which is the higher probability, or lower rates. But it looks like all the central banks are going to stay steady here and not lower rates. So that means that the 10-year is not the 10-year yield is not going to go down, and the price of the 10-year isn't going to go up. So that means that it's going to kind of stay in a range here. So you can see what's been going on in the last week of trading. Actually, the price of the 10-year has been going down. This is directly related, I think, to 2 dynamics. One, not a resolution in the Middle East, but also there's a lot of money flowing into the equity market. So typically in good times, in times of equilibrium in the market, as the equity market starts to go up, the bond prices start to go down. That's the typical thing that happens. And when that happens, the yields go up. But when the stock market goes down, then the actual price of bonds go up because people are moving into a safer haven into bonds. So we've been seeing the last week or so of trading coinciding with this uptick in the actual equity market. So things are actually stable. Now, as the equities, if it stays in equilibrium and as the Federal Reserve stays neutral in terms of changing rates and the currency is stable, which it is, then what we'll see is equities will go up and the actual 10-year bond price will slightly go down. Now it's hovering at, I've been saying that 24.24 was a support level, and you can see that. I've been saying that for quite a while when the trading was down here, or over here near the 25 mark. But 24.24 is a support level. It closed yesterday at 24.26. All right. And a resistance level at 24.83. So when the stock market starts to sell off a little bit from the rally, we should see the equity market actually, or I'm sorry, the bond market for the belly of the curve actually move up, and this ETF that price will get closer to the 24.83 mark. So we probably have a trading range here. This is the main point that I'm making here. If there's a little bit of a sell-off in the equities, we should see TYD move closer to 24.83. If the equity market continues to rally and approach 740 for SPY, then we may see it break the 24.24 support level and get closer to 24. So we have another support level at 24. We have a support level at 24.24, and then we have a resistance level at 24.83 for the 7 to 10 year 3 times leverage ETF TYD. But I think it's heavily predicated on what happens with the equity market. The equity market keeps rallying. I suspect that this belly of the curve, the price of the 7 to 10 year will actually go down a little bit. And so we're going to see probably the yields approaching maybe 4.4. Because the yield right now is at 4.378. It might be trading at, if it approaches 740 for SPY, it might be trading at 4.39. Okay. This chart has the yield for the 30-year, the yield for the 10-year, the Federal Reserve rate, and then the spread between the 30-10. Now, the 30-year yield ended on Friday at 4.98. The Treasury, according to this chart, it's trading at 4.4 for the 10. And as of this recording, it's trading at 4.37. And the spread is at about 0.58. Now, what's important to realize is the Federal Reserve is holding. So whatever they're doing, they're not affecting the actual movement of this. If they were lowering rates, then most likely the yields would go down. Now, it's looking like that the 10 moves faster than the 30. So if equities continue to rise and the price of the 10 goes down, then this will continue to go up. And as that is happening, you may actually see the spread coming down even more. You can kind of see that the slope of this yield is higher from this point to this point. It's at a higher slope than from this point to this point for the 30. All right. So the 10 slope is higher. So the velocity of the change in yield is higher for the 10 than the 30, and therefore the spread is not staying steady, it's actually going down. So that basically means that if this continues to trend, we should see TYD actually trend a little bit more down, closer to the 24 mark, and equities climbing up, and the opposite if equities go down. Okay. Now, VIX is the volatility index for the S&P 500. Now, remember, the S&P 500 through the ETF SPY has been climbing up and up and up, right? So the next really important resistance level is 740 for SPY. Now, VIX is trading just below 17 at 1699, and it's been steadily going down since, since the beginning of April. So it's important to realize that there's higher probability that the equity market is continuing to rally. Now, if there's some crazy stuff that happens in the Middle East between now and Trump's visit to China, which starts on the 14th, I believe, 14th and 15th, he'll be in China. Then if there's some crazy thing that happens in the Middle East in terms of kinetic warfare, then the VIX will spike, treasuries probably will rally, and the equity market will start to go down. But I have a feeling that Trump won't want to do kinetic means until after he comes back from China. So I suspect for the next week and a half or so, we're actually going to have a stock market rally. So there's no indication of like another spike, to happen anytime soon. Now, normally, if you have from a peak, it starts to sell off, like right here, you can kind of see it starts the VIX starts to sell down because the VIX stress is starting to go down, right? It lasts for, let's just say here, we have it at approximately April, right? It peaks and it comes down, and yeah, there's little spikes in here, but then there's another spike. So this spike to this spike. This spike here is mid-May, right? Looks like mid-May. Is it mid-May? Yeah. Well, a little bit more than mid-May. Mid-May. It's closer to the end of May. So the end of May, and this right here, spike, let's just say started April. So you have April, May, so 2 months from this point to this point, approximately, before you had a spike. So the rule is usually around 2 to 2.5 months. So we shouldn't see another spike, assuming this is the starting point. This is happening on 3/20. Okay. So 4/20, 5/20. We may see something happen at the end of May, which coincides with Trump getting out of China. So I suspect that there should be a spike here above 20, maybe closer to 20, 23, 24, maybe even 25. But a spike should happen at the end of May. So the rule is roughly 2 to 2.5 months. But you can have spikes, smaller spikes happening a month apart. But big ones is usually around 2 to 2.5 months. So that heteroscedastic aspect to this curve, I think there should be another spike popping up at the end of May. Okay. With that, I want to go over a video that explains some of the problems that are taking place with the munitions that have been used up during the war in Iran.
Welcome. I'm Mark Cancian, a senior advisor at CSIS, and I'm joined by Chris Park, a research associate, and we're here to talk about our recent study, Last Rounds, looking at the status of key munitions at the ceasefire of the Iranian conflict. Before getting into the results of the study, I want to talk a little about why we did it, and there were three reasons. The first is that we tracked U.S. aid to Ukraine throughout the war, and we saw just how modern conflicts use munitions and the very high rate at which that usage occurs. Second, we conducted a series of war games on a U.S.-China conflict in the Western Pacific, and these 70 war games again showed the high usage of munitions, in this case particularly air and naval munitions. And finally, for the current conflict, we did some analysis on the cost of the war, and munitions were a major part of that. The study brought together what we had seen about the usage of munitions in Ukraine and in war games about the Western Pacific with what we could see about munitions usage in this conflict.
So the actual inventory numbers are classified. What we've done is use publicly available information to come up with best estimates grounded in numbers the United States Department of Defense has released. And the estimates came in two parts, as you can see in the summary graphic we have on the screen. The first part is the estimated pre-war inventories of some of these munitions. And the second part was the estimated use, the expenditures in the current campaign. So how do we do this? So the first part, the inventory, the pre-war inventory. The starting point there was the annual U.S. Department of Defense budget justification documents that detailed the number of missiles produced each year. We've included the ones delivered to U.S. stockpiles in the last 20 years. From that number, we took away a set number for non-operational uses like lot testing or training. We've also, where needed, took away numbers known to have been used in past campaigns. So that's how we got to the pre-war inventory numbers. For the expenditures in the Iran war, the 2026 Iran war, the starting point here again was some of the numbers released by the Pentagon. There was periodic updates from the United States Central Command. There's also statements from senior officials that informed the direction and the scope of the campaign. And from that number, we've filled in the blanks with the numbers released by the Israelis and some of our Gulf Coalition partners, historic patterns of usage, and also the known regional order of battle, which we will go over in the map we have in front of us today. And we've refined the methodology since the beginning of the war as more information has come out, and we continue to do that work. In the next couple of minutes, we are going to walk through some of the numbers up on this summary table. And really the starting point here is the American strike campaign, the 39-day strike campaign against Iran. CENTCOM has reported that U.S. forces have struck over 13,000 targets in the 39 days. On top of all that, Israelis also conducted about 10,000 strikes.
I want to make 3 points on this graph here. First, you can see at the very beginning, very high level of U.S. strikes, and that occurred because the pilots, the air crew, the aircraft were all fresh, and the target sets that the Central Command had were also full. As time went on, air crew needed rest, aircraft needed maintenance, and it took time to develop additional targets. The second thing is that there was a transition here from long-range precision strike to shorter range, and Chris will talk about that later. And finally, overall, the United States conducted about 330 strikes per day, although the number varied from about 100 to 500 a day. Now we'll start taking a look at the individual munitions. This is a picture of a Tomahawk launch. Tomahawk is a sea-launched, long-range precision cruise missile. It's launched from surface ships and submarines. And for this conflict, there were two major launch positions. The first one was in the Eastern Mediterranean. Here, there was the USS Bainbridge and several other destroyers here fired from the Eastern Mediterranean into Iran, going over Iraq, and there were pictures of these missiles flying over Iraq. The second set is over here in the Arabian Sea, over here. These also fired long range into southern Iran. It's important to note that there are no U.S. forces in the Gulf itself firing at this time. The Gulf is much too confined for naval forces during a conflict, and it was only right at the ceasefire the United States sent two destroyers in, and they have not launched any missiles from inside the Gulf. This graphic shows the usage of Tomahawks in past campaigns. You can see that it was first used in Desert Storm. Here, it has been used extensively over the years. Most recently, it was used against insurgents in Nigeria in December, Christmas Day of 2025. And we did this analysis on past campaigns as an element of our calculations about inventories and how many we had at the beginning of this conflict. TLAMs have been used extensively, as you can see here, because they're long range and don't put platforms into any danger. And the second thing is because they're on ships, they can move around and therefore don't need any permissions to get into firing position.
So what does the inventory of Tomahawk missiles look like at the ceasefire? The Washington Post first reported 4 weeks into the Iran war that U.S. forces have fired around 850 Tomahawk missiles. The Wall Street Journal subsequently reported in the last week that U.S. forces have launched over 1,000. We estimated that there were about, the Tomahawk inventory stood at about low 3,000s before this war. So it's conceivable that U.S. forces have expended around a third of the pre-war inventory in this 39 days of the bombing campaign. Another important point to note is that there is a separate question for in-theater Tomahawk inventories. Navy ships that fire these missiles can't reload at sea. The Navy is working on this capability, but the ships cannot yet reload these missiles at sea. It's how many Tomahawks each destroyer is loaded with is classified, but public writing suggests that it's anywhere between 10 to 50% of the vertical launch system cells that these ships are sailing with. It's conceivable that after firing 1,000 Tomahawk missiles, Navy assets in the region have nearly expended all the in-theater Tomahawk inventories, and that is counting, assuming that 2 guided missile submarines are also in theater alongside all the destroyers. But as recently reported, the George Bush Carrier Strike Group is now in theater. And with it, it brings the destroyers that have now fully loaded when they left their home port with missiles, including Tomahawk missiles and some of the other ship-launched missiles.
This is a good time to talk about the Strait of Hormuz and the blockade. As you can see from the map here, we have the tankers represented in the Gulf. Some of them, of course, are deep in the Gulf, but some of them are right outside the strait. The Iranians, of course, have laid mines, reported to be under 100. And then out in the Arabian Sea, we have the U.S. forces that are conducting the blockade, boarding ships as they come by. The U.S. has boarded several, fired on one, and boarded several others in the Indian Ocean. Next, we'll look at JASSM. JASSM is an air-launched, stealthy, long-range cruise missile, complements the Tomahawk. We've seen JASSMs launched from B-52s. Those are stationed in the UK. We've seen them launched from several other platforms in the Gulf region. We've also seen other bombers, B-2s, being used. They don't launch JASSMs. They have dropped bunker busters. And also, we've seen some B-1s operating from the United States.
Alongside the bombers we just placed on the map here, the United States has conducted a weeks-long buildup of air assets into the Middle East leading up to the start of Operation Epic Fury. These included F-22s that were spotted in some Israeli base in the Negev desert. And, overhead imagery during this buildup showed over 60 fighter jets in Jordan. It's unclear, it's hard to have a high fidelity estimate of where exactly these planes have been operating from during the campaign. At least that is what the status of the air buildup during the weeks leading up to the start of this campaign. The buildup, of course, included support aircraft like tankers and some of the advanced warning aircraft, including the E-3 Sentry plane that was hit in a drone attack on the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. Planes, carrier-based aviation, planes launching from aircraft carriers are also conducting strike. These include the Gerald R. Ford that began this campaign in the Eastern Mediterranean. And of course, the second carrier that was out in the Arabian Gulf. So how does the JASSM inventory situation look like at the ceasefire? The New York Times reported recently that 1,100 JASSM-ER, this is the extended range variant of the JASSM, have been used in this campaign with around 1,500 left in U.S. stockpiles. The larger inventory numbers in the CSIS estimates compared to the New York Times reporting stems from two accounts. Number one, we include the sizable Air Force procurement of the baseline JASSM. This is the non-extended range JASSMs that were procured in large quantities in the 2000s and the early 2010s. And number two, that the first operational use of the JASSM missile was in 2018, when President Trump ordered strikes against Assad regime's chemical weapons plants.
The next munition is the precision strike missile. This is launched from Army artillery vehicles, either the MLRS tracked vehicle or the HIMARS wheeled vehicle. This is a new system used first in this conflict. It has the distinction of destroying an Iranian submarine. So there's some irony that the only adversary submarine sunk since World War II was done by the Army. These were probably fired from Kuwait because the U.S. has several bases there and also has vehicle storage there, so likely came out of Kuwait.
Given that PRISMs are relatively new systems to the U.S. forces, we estimate that the inventory is in the double digits, in the high double digits. So the number expended will take up a significant chunk of the existing pre-war stockpiles, but that's partly because it is a new system without the sufficient time as some of the other munitions to accumulate sufficient inventories. To note, the predecessor to the PRISM, the ATACMS missile, which the United States has supplied some quantities to Ukraine, there are sizable inventories of those missiles remaining in U.S. stockpiles.
Next munition is Lucas. This is a low-cost drone that can be fired in large numbers. It was copied from the Iranian Shahed drone, which ironically Russia also copied. So Iran has spawned two offshoots of its original design. Lucas is suitable for swarming, although in this conflict it's relatively new, so the numbers weren't there for large swarms. There are several other munitions that are in the process of development, long-range JDAM, for example, and ERAM. These are lower-cost, medium-range missiles to fill that gap between the very inexpensive drones and the very expensive long-range munitions like JASSM and Tomahawk. We do want to make the point that not all of our inventories are short. There are a number of munitions where the United States has large inventories. You can see some of those here. These are mostly shorter range munitions, so the United States needs air superiority. We have that now over Iran. These munitions are not going to go short. So when the president says that the United States has adequate inventories in certain categories, that's a fair comment to make.
There is another point to be made here on the plentiful short-range munitions that is readily available in U.S. inventories, not only from the standpoint of the inventories, but the standpoint of costs. This week, the Pentagon comptroller said in a House Armed Services Committee hearing that the DoD estimate for Iran war costs is around $25 billion. The New York Times previously reported that some DoD officials have briefed Congress that the war has cost around $11.3 billion by the first week. CSIS, Professor Cansey and I have estimated that the war has cost $16.5 billion by the 12th day. And our colleagues over at the American Enterprise Institute estimated that, by the ceasefire, the Iran war costs have accumulated somewhere between $25 and $35 billion. But beyond the top line figure, it is important to stress here that the American operational success in suppressing Iranian air defense capabilities have driven down the war cost. You'll see that the expenditures of expensive munitions were very high in the beginning, And as Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has talked about, the point of munitions transition, where more of these, JDAMs and the cheaper, more plentiful munitions have been used, have driven down the cost. And just to illustrate the difference, a single shot of the JASSM, the long-range cruise missile, cost about $2.5 million. Compared to that, a dumb bomb kitted or fitted with the Joint Direct Attack Munition, the guidance kit, cost less than $100,000. Both can precisely deliver a 1,000-pound payload accurately against Iranian targets.
Next, we're going to look at the Iranian side, their launches of missiles and drones. You can see that those started at a very high rate, then tapered off. The interception rate has been pretty good by the United States and our Gulf allies. That has been between 80 and 90%. Still, some get through and have caused damage to U.S. bases. The United States has had an active counter-UAS development program for the last decade, but that started slow, picked up speed with Ukraine, didn't have the numbers that the United States wanted for this conflict. We've seen some damage to U.S. bases. You can see where those are here, particularly in Kuwait, where the United States has several bases. That's where there were fatalities at the beginning of the conflict when one of the missiles hit a barracks. And other bases in the area have also been struck by Iranian missiles. It's important to have some perspective here, though. Every day of the war, the United States and Israel together were launching in the vicinity of 600 strikes against Iran. In response, Iran was able to get maybe 20 missiles through. So it was not a tit-for-tat situation. The attacks were very lopsided. The problem is that because of Iranian restrictions on the internet, very little could be seen about the attacks on Iran, whereas a lot could be seen about attacks in the Gulf. The next munitions we'll look at are the SM-3 and the SM-6. SM-3 is an anti-missile missile, and SM-6 is anti-air, anti-missile, and has some capability against ballistic missiles. Those have been fired from 3 locations. Some in the Eastern Mediterranean, as we saw with Tomahawks, some from the Red Sea, and then also some from the Arabian Sea. Because of the geography, these have been used less intensively than some of the land-based systems.
And the inventory numbers that we have estimated show that employment pattern. We have included the low and high estimates for expenditures during the 2026 Iran war, just to take account of the various assumptions that go into making these calculations. CNN reporting, based on some of the estimates that CSIS has put out, say around 20% of SM-3 and SM-6 inventories have been depleted or have been used in this campaign, which is towards the lower end of the CSIS estimates in this report. And again, that is likely the result of location with ground-based interceptors being much closer or much proximate or just in the right spots to intercept some of these Iranian launches. Nevertheless, a significant amount of these Standard missiles have been expended during this war, but also some of the past campaigns since the October 7 attack on Israel that have launched this wider Middle East war.
The next munitions we're going to look at are Patriot and THAAD. These are anti-ballistic missile munitions. They are stationed throughout the Gulf region because Israel has its own set of missiles. They don't use U.S. missiles, but many of our Gulf allies do. We have at least one THAAD battery, the U.S., in Jordan, that its radar was apparently damaged by Iranian attacks. And then the Gulf allies have their own air defenses, missile defenses. The Saudis, for example, have THAAD. and the UAE also has THAAD. Saudis have Patriot. So they have their own defensive systems, and the United States is supplementing them.
For inventories, the THAAD issue is probably the most acute among the seven munitions we have, seven critical munitions we have discussed here today. And that's after especially more than 150 have reportedly been used during the 12-day war in 2025. The potential loss or damage of at least one THAAD radar that helps support these batteries will hurt even more and open up a capability gap. The United States, the Missile Defense Agency has procured around 11 of these radars, and it will take time and a lot of money to replace any losses and damages. For Patriot inventory, the latest version of the Patriot is what is called the PAC-3 MSC. It stands for Patriot Advanced Capability 3 Missile Segment Enhancement. In our inventory calculations, we've included the previous variant of the Patriot interceptor, the non-MSC PAC-3. That explains why our inventory numbers of the Patriot missile may be higher than some of the other estimates that's going around.
Next, we're going to talk about some low-cost air defense systems. Cost is a major concern about our ability to counter drones. Here you see some of the systems that the United States has been using. In the upper right there, you can see a drone that's designed to take down another drone. U.S. has systems called Roadrunner and Coyote. Here you see what's essentially an automatic cannon. This is called CSIS, Close Range Weapon System, for taking out drones at close range. And here you see a rocket. It's called APKWS. It's an inexpensive guided rocket, again, for taking out drones. The United States, however, started late and didn't have enough of these systems. So that brings us to our next discussion. These are what we call alternative air defense munitions. These are air-to-air munitions that are normally used against other aircraft. They've been used against drones in this conflict. The United States has very large inventories of these. They're on the expensive side, though. The AIM-9 costs about $500,000 each, and the AIM-120s, AMRAAMs, cost about $1 million. The United States used these along with our Gulf allies when we've had to. Long term, we're looking to use more of the less expensive interceptors.
The last point we'll discuss today in our presentation is on delivery timelines. How long will it take for the United States to replenish our inventories? We estimate that depending on the system and how heavily it has been used in the 2026 Iran war, it'll take anywhere between 1 year to 4 years, with some other estimates putting the timeline at more than 6 years. So I'll start by breaking down Table 2 in the last round's report. Column 2 puts the lead time between when Congress appropriates the funds and the Department of Defense signs contracts, awards the contract to the defense contractor that is building the missiles. It also includes the time between contract award and the delivery of the very first missile in a given fiscal year's procurement. This is what we call the manufacturing lead time. The third column lists the production time for the full lot. This is the time between the first delivery of a given missile and the final delivery in a given fiscal year's procurement. That's how we got to the total delivery time in months in the final column, and that's the number you see in the summary graphic about the timeline for deliveries for these 7 critical munitions.
Because the demand has outstripped supply, even though the supply is going up as the United States expands its industrial base, that means there's going to be competition for these missiles as they are produced. strategists in the United States who focus on the Pacific want to keep these missiles for our own. Other allies will want some for themselves. The Gulf states, for example, want to replenish their inventories, which are greatly depleted. There are 18 countries that use Patriot, and this is going to be a particularly difficult trade-off. Switzerland, for example, wants to buy some Patriots, but have been told that they may be pushed to the end of the line, and they are very angry about that. We also have a situation with Tomahawk. Japanese want to buy 400 as part of their effort to be more assertive against China. But if those aren't available, then their policy will be in some danger. The result is that there's what you might call a window of vulnerability in the Western Pacific as the United States builds up its inventories, replenishes what was expended, and then builds those inventories up to where we want them to be for a potential conflict in the Western Pacific. Thank you for joining us today. The full report is on the CSIS website.
This is the AC device my team spent 3.
Well, that's a good overview of what is happening in the Middle East in terms of munitions, in terms of what we used during the last 60 days or so, and the replacement rates, which is shocking. I mean, if you really think about to replace what we've used will take years. And this is another point that people need to realize, that our manufacturing base in the United States, even though it is large, has been eroded because of globalization. And to have war prowess, to have the ability to ramp up production in Navy vessels and in munitions is super important. And globalization has actually literally weakened the country in terms of our economic prowess. So this, I think, is a rude awakening for these individuals out there that are America First pacifists that need to realize that we need to bring back our manufacturing and also have a better war footing, especially if we want to counter China in their expansionism on the first and second island chains in the Pacific. So these munitions that we're using in the theater in the Middle East are going to take years to replace. Years. So super, super scary. Super scary. So thank you for listening. Please help support the work that I do by subscribing to all my channels. I have YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Make sure you click the like button and watch the different videos that I create throughout the week to learn about how to improve your health, but also how to navigate through the financial markets and what's really going on with all the tumultuous news that arises domestically and internationally. All these videos I do are for free, so please help support the work that I do by donating on my website. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. Share the links. All the links to my different channels are in the description of this video and all my videos. And also get the great supplements that I have on my store. Again, if you stack them appropriately, you're going to be able to slow down the aging process. These are supplements that I use every day. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for listening. and have a nice day.